Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the financial system you've known your whole life has simply stopped working. We're not talking about a stock market crash or a traditional banking crisis. We're talking about something much deeper, more systemic, and potentially more devastating. And the scariest part? The American government is watching it happen in slow motion, unable to stop it. In recent months, a silent phenomenon has been keeping authorities in Washington awake at night. Economic experts, national security advisors, and even the Treasury Department are on high alert. The reason? A completely new type of financial collapse that doesn't resemble anything we've ever seen before. Unlike the 2008 crisis, which originated in subprime loans and real estate speculation, or the 1929 crash caused by rampant speculation in the stock market, this new danger comes from a completely unexpected direction. The truth is that the global financial system has become so complex, so interconnected, and so dependent on technology that we have created vulnerabilities that we cannot even fully understand. We're talking about artificial intelligence algorithms that execute millions of transactions per second, cryptocurrencies that move billions without any centralized oversight, and a parallel banking system that has grown in the shadows, beyond the reach of traditional regulators. But what exactly is happening? To understand this, we need to look at three fundamental elements that are converging in a dangerous way. First, there is the growing fragility of the American banking system, especially after the collapse of several regional banks in 2023. Institutions that seemed solid simply evaporated in a matter of hours, leaving depositors in panic and authorities scrambling to contain the contagion. Second, there is the explosion of the American national debt, which has surpassed $35 trillion and continues to grow at an alarming rate. And third, there is the technological revolution in the financial sector that has created new instruments so complex that even their creators cannot foresee all the consequences. What keeps strategists awake at night is the possibility that these three factors will combine into a perfect storm. Imagine a scenario where confidence in the dollar begins to waver, foreign investors decide to abandon U.S. Treasury bonds, and simultaneously, an error in automated trading algorithms triggers a cascade of sell-offs that no human can stop in time. This is not science fiction. It is a real risk that analysts consider increasingly likely. To understand the magnitude of this threat, we need to understand how we got here. After the 2008 financial crisis, governments around the world injected unprecedented amounts of money into the economy. This policy, known as quantitative easing, was initially presented as a temporary emergency measure. But the temporary became permanent. The Federal Reserve, the American central bank, expanded its balance sheet from less than $1 trillion in 2008 to more than $8 trillion at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. All this money had to go somewhere. And it did. It inflated bubbles in virtually every imaginable market. Stocks, real estate, cryptocurrencies, art, collectibles, and even digital memes. Companies that had never made a profit reached valuations of billions of dollars. The housing market skyrocketed to levels that made buying a home virtually impossible for an entire generation. And speculation became not only acceptable, but almost mandatory for those who didn't want to see their savings eroded by inflation. But there is a fundamental problem in this equation. All this wealth created does not correspond to an equivalent increase in the real production of goods and services. This is what economists call fictitious or nominal wealth. It is money that exists on balance sheets, in market valuations, and in spreadsheets, but that cannot be fully converted into real value without causing a collapse of the system. It's like a game of musical chairs where there are 100 people, but only 10 chairs. While the music plays, everyone pretends everything is fine. But when the music stops, chaos is inevitable. The American government is particularly vulnerable because it has become the biggest gambler in this game. With a debt exceeding 100% of gross domestic product, the United States depends on the continued confidence of investors to be able to refinance this debt at manageable interest rates. But this confidence is not infinite. Countries like China and Japan, which traditionally were the largest buyers of American Treasury bonds, have been reducing their positions. They are literally losing faith in the American ability to honor its long-term commitments. And here comes the truly frightening aspect of this situation. The modern financial system is based on layers and layers of promises. Your money in the bank is a promise that the bank can return it whenever you want. A treasury bond is a promise that the government will pay it back with interest. A stock is a promise of a share in a company's future profits. The whole system works because we trust these promises. But what happens when we start to doubt? When we realize that there are far more promises than the actual ability to fulfill them? The answer is in the history books. Every major financial crisis begins with a loss of trust, and trust is like a mirror. Once broken, it is extremely difficult to restore. So what is the American government doing to prevent this collapse? The honest answer is not much, and perhaps there isn't much that can be done. Traditional economic policy tools are practically exhausted. Interest rates, which are normally raised to control inflation or lowered to stimulate the economy, are in complicated territory. Raising them too much could trigger a recession and make public debt unpayable. Keeping them low risks runaway inflation and more speculative bubbles. Financial regulators are also struggling to keep up with innovation. The cryptocurrency sector, for example, moves trillions of dollars but operates largely outside the traditional regulatory system. Stablecoins, non-fungible tokens, decentralized finance. All these innovations create new channels for money to flow, and new points of failure that regulators have barely begun to understand. It's like trying to regulate the internet using laws written in the telegraph era. Even more worrying is the issue of speed. In previous financial crises, there was time to react. Days, sometimes weeks, between the start of a problem and its spread to the rest of the system. This time allowed governments and central banks to coordinate responses, organize bailouts, and communicate with the public. But in today's world, where algorithms execute millions of transactions per second and news spreads instantly through social networks, a crisis can turn into a catastrophe in a matter of minutes. There is no time for emergency meetings or parliamentary discussions. By the time humans realize what is happening, it may be too late to intervene. There are also geopolitical risks that amplify this fragility. The dollar's position as the world's reserve currency depends not only on the American economy, but also on its political and military influence. Countries like China and Russia have been working for years to create alternative financial systems that reduce their dependence on the dollar. Every economic sanction imposed by the United States, every threat of asset freezes, accelerates this process. If the dollar loses its privileged status, the American government would lose its ability to finance gigantic deficits without serious inflationary consequences. So, what can we expect? Some experts are optimistic, arguing that the system has more resilience than it seems and that stabilizing mechanisms will kick in before a total collapse. Others are apocalyptic, predicting a complete overhaul of the global financial system in the coming decades. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. We are likely to see a series of smaller crises, each forcing adjustments and reforms, until a new equilibrium eventually emerges. What is certain is that the financial system as we know it is under unprecedented stress. American authorities know this. They see the warning signs flashing. But between knowing that a problem exists and being able to solve it, there is a huge distance. And that distance may be exactly what makes this new crash so frightening. Because this time everyone can see the train derailing but no one knows exactly how to stop it. Try again. Claude can make mistakes. Always check the answers.